Later with Mo Kelly on KFI AM 640.
Of course, the big news from Friday had to do with Joe Biden. And I was thinking about this all weekend. And just in case you lived under a rock or something, on Friday, former President Joe Biden was diagnosed with prostate cancer, characterized by a Gleason score of 9 with metastasis to the bone. A Gleason score is based on the appearance of cancer cells under a microscope and ranges from 6 to 10, 10 being the most aggressive form. Despite this reality, it doesn't mean the prognosis is either necessarily dire or fatal. But what we as the general public don't know is the extent of the metastasis and what other organs, if any, have been impacted. That's the medical portion of the news. The political portion, that's pretty obvious. This has already been used by Republicans to further push the narrative that the Democrats knew, at least cognitively, Biden's health was declining, saying nothing of his likely physical health naturally declining because of his advanced age. Such is the premise behind the just-released book by CNN anchor Jake Tapper and Axios political consultant Alex Thompson titled Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. Me personally, I've said many times previously, privately and publicly, that Biden should have not ever pushed to run for re-election. Biden made it part of his original election stance, if you remember, that he was to be a one-term president. I always said it was fair to question whether a second-term presidency with an expiration date of January 2029 was either realistic or even idealistic. I thought it was neither, and I said it many times, and I have the audio to prove it. But Biden made his choice, and the rest, as they say, is history. But just like I said with Biden, it is fair to question Donald Trump. And here's the truth when it comes to presidents and their health, from FDR to Ronald Reagan, to Joe Biden, to Donald Trump. If you know your American history and you call yourself a patriot, so you should know this, you should also know what I'm about to say is true and has always been true. A president's health, or even lack of health, is a national security issue. Always has been. Ronald Reagan was failing cognitively during his second term. The American public was not and would not have ever been officially made aware while he was president. Now, you can call that a cover-up or whatever, but you will never know if the sitting president even has a peanut allergy, atrial fibrillation, gout, none of that. Much has been made of the results of Donald Trump's many physicals. You can also call that a cover-up if you want, but you, me, the general public, we will never know his true health status. Yes, we've been told that the President Trump is 6'3" and only 225 pounds. He takes statins, but that's as far as it will ever go. Don't be surprised, though, after he leaves office, you might hear something, and that's assuming he ever willingly leaves office, but that's another story. But don't be surprised if you learn after Trump leaves office that his health was far worse than originally reported. That's the way it's always been, irrespective of party. Part of it has to do with national security concerns, and part of it, yes, has to do with political concerns. Presidents have annual physicals. Joe Biden went from fully fit to metastatic cancer to the bone in 1 year. At least that's what we know publicly. But what's more likely? That he went from completely fit to aggressive metastatic cancer in the past 12 months, or that he was likely already dealing with prostate cancer on some level prior to? Now, according to the oncologists that I talked to and to Google, metastatic prostate cancer is slow and could take up to 8 years to spread to the bone. 8 years. So what is more likely, 8 years or 1? It's a fair question to ask. And we also know that some men are instructed not to get any type of PSA tests or prostate tests after the age of 70. But this is the president we're talking about. But these are fair questions to ask. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. Fair questions to ask whether Joe Biden was dealing with prostate cancer, though manageable, for longer than we, the general public, knew. Conversely, for example, if Donald Trump had a heart issue, and mind you, that's possible, he has probably the worst diet in the world, he does not exercise, it's possible he could have a heart issue. But if he did, you and I will never know while he is in office, short of dying. Not ever. And I say all this to say you will never know how good or how bad President Trump health is. It doesn't matter what he tells you. It doesn't matter what the White House tells you. It doesn't matter what his doctor tells you, because we're not supposed to know. Why? Because it could cause chaos in the financial markets. It could embolden our enemies. It could unravel negotiated hostage and peace deals if you knew that the U.S. president was ailing. You didn't know how close Trump was to death in his first term when he had COVID, did you? Until he left office. And then we all knew he was close to death. And that wasn't any coincidence. We didn't know how close Ronald Reagan was to death after his assassination attempt until well after he was released from the hospital. He was very close. He almost died from internal bleeding and a collapsed lung. The general public did not know that. So let me reiterate when I say this about President Biden and now restating it with now President Trump. You will never actually know how good or how bad a president's health is. The physicals and their truth are never for public consumption. But like we did with Biden, it's absolutely fair to question what we see, what we hear, and the connected behavior and call out physical or mental deterioration. You can't do it with just the president you don't like. Like typing on social media at 1:30 in the morning to bark at the moon and demand investigations on Beyonce and Bono just because they and other entertainers didn't endorse him. That's not normal, people. That's not normal for any person, much less a sitting president. And speaking of mental deterioration, it's also fair to highlight the fact that the only people with questions about their cognitive acuity have to take cognitive tests, like Trump. So know that when they say they aced the cognitive test, there is already a question. It is okay to have questioned the mental and physical health of Joe Biden. We need to understand why we're not privy to a lot of things. But if it's okay to question Joe Biden, we must also question Donald Trump. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. I was walking in the hallway and I was listening to Mark Ronner do the news. And he was saying that Bill Belichick, the former New England Patriots coach, Hall of Fame coach, just got engaged? You're saying Bill Belichick popped the question to his 24-year-old girlfriend? Bill just turned 73 last month. Don't get me wrong. If you're 73, you're not likely to get any more hotties in life, not in the natural course of life. But I'm just talking to the men right now. Just to the men. Ladies, you'll just have to excuse us, okay? Because it ain't about you, what I'm getting ready to say. There's an old adage for men. You do not marry the stripper. Not saying that Jordan Hudson, that's his girlfriend, fiance, is not in love with Bill. I'm not saying that she's a stripper. I'm just saying that she wasn't searching the world over for a man who is triple her age to call her own, and she just happened to hit it off with the Bill Belichick. I just don't believe that. The old adage is you don't marry the stripper. The stripper is a metaphor here. And I'm saying it as a pearl of wisdom. The analogy is the stripper is obviously physically attractive. We know why men are attracted to that. And the stripper's job is to make men like her. That's her job. Jordan is a 24-year-old beauty queen. She's on the pageant circuit, even still. And if I'm Bill, I'm saying take the win. Take the win. You've already got her as a girlfriend. You don't have to ask her to marry you, Bill, is bidding against yourself. She's not going anywhere. Why? Because I'm not so sure it's true love. Nobody's putting in a better offer, Bill, okay? You are working against yourself here. Bill Belichick doesn't need to buy the proverbial cow, as they say. I know, I'm just talking to the man. Nobody would have faulted Bill if he didn't put a ring on it. Beyonce, shout out. Have fun. Go out to dinner at 4 p.m. like 73-year-old men do. Have her tuck you in bed by 7 p.m. A friend told me long ago, don't try to be happier than happy. Being happy is enough, because when you try to get happier than happy, that's when you mess things up. And I'm sure Jordan rocked Bill's 73-year-old world. Guaranteed. Men, you know what I'm talking about. I'm only talking to you. But what would compel Bill Belichick to ask for her hand in marriage other than the sex? Other than that? Let's be honest. This is a short-term relationship. One way or the other. Either Jordan is leaving Bill or Bill is leaving. But they're not riding off into the sunset together. Bill Belichick will not be the first or the last man to lose his mind over great sex. I don't believe this is a great love story. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. We're just talking about sex, right? Now, I do feel sorry for Bill on some level because this story is only going to end badly, prenup or not. This story has no happy ending, and there is no happily ever after. Bill Belichick should be too old not to know better. Don't marry the stripper. Don't marry the beauty pageant queen. Just date her. I mean, they're like 49 years between you two. It's okay not to get married. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly. Before we get out of here, I previewed my final thought. And it has to do with OJ. And you're probably thinking like, OJ? Yeah, that was my question. Isn't OJ dead? I thought that Orenthal James Simpson was dead. You mean we, as in America, we're still obsessing over all things OJ? Well, it seems that way. Jennifer Peace, who says she was dating OJ's close friend Al Cowlings at the time of the murders, claims Al told her that OJ had told him that he committed the double murder. And I'm thinking like, this matters? Question mark? I have no idea. This was on the landing page of Radar Online. Somewhat reputable. Not completely, but somewhat. Homepage. Breaking news, supposedly. At this point, I really don't understand the obsession. The killer of Casey Anthony's child, according to Casey Anthony, is still out there. In fact, Casey recently joined TikTok and is peddling her wares as a quote-unquote legal advocate. Get the F out of here. But nobody cares. Well, that's not exactly true. Everything I read says that Casey Anthony is doing very well financially since her acquittal. Casey is still alive. Nobody really cares or is reporting on her. You can do the search on your own. Look up Casey Anthony and see how few stories come up about her. And she's doing very well financially. Nobody's writing any stories about who might have said something to someone about something 3 people removed regarding Casey Anthony. And she is cashing in on her notoriety and infamy. Notoriety only connected to her beating the rap for murdering her own child, allegedly. No outrage. Nothing. But I know, OJ was trial of the century, as in last century. We are more than a quarter away through this century. And nobody cares about Robert Blake killing his ex-wife, and he was literally at the scene of the crime when his ex-wife was murdered. The prosecution didn't even have to prove Blake was around when his ex-wife was murdered. Robert Blake literally drove Bonnie Lee Bakley to the murder scene, walked away from the car, came back, and coincidentally, oh my goodness, ex-wife dead. He beat the rap. He ended up hanging out with karaoke singers like me at the Sportsman's Lodge in Studio City, eating dinner at 4 p.m. like most old people do, and nobody said boo. Nobody wrote any stories about him. No one was upset about anything. Nobody was asking ex-girlfriends he was not even a topic for discussion. And speaking of Blake, I had someone reach out to me, true story, a few months ago. And that person wanted to tell me, and this is real, I don't want to use his name, but he was saying that people cared just as much about Robert Blake as they did OJ. Mind you, at the time, the person didn't even know that Robert Blake was already dead. That's my point. They supposedly care, but don't know the basics. The obsession with OJ is beyond strange now. People under the age of 40 have zero firsthand memory of the trial or the murders. Now, they may know about it because of the subsequent coverage, but they don't remember it. And get this, This Jennifer Peace person, who just happens to also be a former porn star, probably was paid handsomely for telling this story, which is two people removed in terms of hearsay. And it's not even the first time she's told this story. I mean, I understood the fixation while OJ was alive, but not now, not this late into this century. There are no more stories to tell, no more documentaries to make. These outlets are literally recycling the same stories and re-interviewing the same people and getting the exact same information. Here's how I know. This from the Radar Online story. Quote, this is not the first time that Jennifer Peace, who used to do adult films under the name Devon Shire, has told this story. A September 12, 1994 story published by UPI reported about Peace claiming, quote, Cowlings told her Simpson acted in a blind rage when he killed his wife, close quote. Well, then why are you re-reporting the exact same information, and why are people still interviewing this person to only get the stuff she said exactly 35 years ago? It's kind of rhetorical. The obsession with all things OJ is something I'll never understand. I have my suspicions, don't get me wrong. I have my suspicions, but we should be beyond the obsession at this point. Everybody's dead. Everybody's dead. There's nothing new to share, nothing new to tell. There are still high-profile murderers still walking around and profiting off their fame as an acquitted murderer, Casey Anthony. But it's time to let him go. It's time to let them die and let Nicole and Ron rest. For KFI AM 640, I'm Mo Kelly.